Okay, so last year I spoke to over 200 recruiters who booked a free consultation via my LinkedIn profile in relation to my coaching program. And I would say that the vast majority of those recruiters really struggled with messaging. Yeah, so they were getting really low response rates. They weren't booking many meetings. They weren't, having conversations with clients. Yeah, they were writing emails or they were sending LinkedIn messages, and they were basically going into a black hole of silence. Now, most people they focus on the copy, they focus on the emails themselves. And don't get me wrong, yeah, anybody who knows me will know that I value good copy. I think the market is saturated with terrible emails, terrible LinkedIn messages, and I'm somebody who really believes in copywriting. So obviously, you need to make sure that you write good copy. But by the same token, I would argue that most recruiters, fall down on a stage a lot earlier in that client acquisition workflow, and that stage is prospecting. So the way you want to think about prospecting is everything pretty much flows from that point. Yeah. So prospecting basically means you identify who your ideal customer is. And once you've done that, you understand what their problems are. And then you refine your offering, your service to solve those problems. Yes, your unique value proposition should basically solve the problems of your ideal customer profile. And once you understand that, your messaging, your outreach basically flows from that point, because your messaging is you essentially telling your ICP what your UVP is and how it can help them. But most recruiters that I've worked with neglect the prospecting part. They get a list of leads on a platform like Apollo, for example. They pull up, 100 companies in, say, France or Spain. That list includes, fintech companies, it includes, pharmaceutical companies, it includes tech companies, whatever. Yeah, it's got a range of random companies in there, and they've got a bunch of random leads. They've got sales directors, CTO, CEO, the founder, the head of talent, the head of people. And because their prospect list is so generalized, it means that their messaging, almost by proxy, has to also be generalized. Whereas if they spent more time on the prospecting part, so for example, they pulled up a list of 100 financial services companies in the UK, they found, three personas for each company, for example, the CTO, the CEO, the head of delivery, whatever. Then they wrote individual sequences for each of those personas. Then their prospecting is automatically making their messaging better, because their messaging is suddenly relevant to that prospect rather than being generalized because their list of prospects is so random. Now, if you want to, ensure that your prospecting is much better, obviously your lead gen process needs to be a bit more, locked in. And the Growth Machine has a really cool feature called Lookalike Search. So let's say you're, a recruiter recruiting in the financial services space, and you decide that you basically want to find other companies like, let's say Barclays. So you put in the company in here. So we'll say Barclays. Should bring it up. And then you can do a score to see how similar you want the list to be. So for example, I've just gone high. You can go very high, medium, but we'll go with high. And as you can see, it's pulled up a list of other, banks, financial services companies that are similar to Barclays. You can then filter it down, by going from, the size of the company, location, etc. And you can add additional industries. And then what you can do after you've done that is let's move my floating head out of the way. You then go find leads, and you can then identify the relevant leads in those companies. So let's say, for example, you want to find technical stakeholders within that list of leads you just looked for. So financial services companies, banks. You could put in, for example, CTO. Press add. You could put in the head of engineering. Press add again. View results. And you've suddenly got a list of technical stakeholders who all work for banks and financial services companies that are all relevant to to Barclays. And what you would then do, to move my floating head again, you would import those leads into a sequence, and then you're ready to start contacting them. And I've talked about this before. Obviously, the Growth Machine does have multi-channel offerings. You can create sequences across LinkedIn, phone, even Twitter, which is a bit random, but some people want to do that. Email as well. And I get approached by software companies regularly, lead gen companies asking me to do videos about their products. But I've always maintained this, that if you search back in all of my LinkedIn posts, I don't really ever praise software companies, because unless I use a product, I'm not going to talk about it. But for me, the Growth Machine is great for the full kind of end-to-end process, from lead gen right up to actually outreach. And this is a really cool feature. So the moral of this story, that the kind of the key factor to take away from this post is spend a lot of time prospecting before you worry about outreach. Yeah, outreach is obviously important. Messaging copy is crucial. If you send terrible emails, it doesn't matter how good your prospecting is, you won't get any meetings. But by the same token, you could write, some Shakespearean level copy, but if the message you're sending is not relevant to the person you're sending it to, again, you probably won't get a response. So bear that in mind, and then spend way more time on your prospecting. Cheers.